So let's move on to our next segment entitled, What Would You Change? Imagine you were in charge of everything. With a declaration, you could change one thing regarding rare diseases that would solve a major problem. Pat, let's start with you. What would you change?
Gosh, I think that if we could do newborn screening and identify all or most of these rare diseases right at birth, it would be amazing. And then obviously have systems for these individuals to participate in that would be supportive, offer standard of care to the degree that it's known, and that we could track that data so that this person would feel not only well appropriately diagnosed, but well supported throughout their disease process. So I think I would begin there.
Very good. All right, Ben, what would you declare?
So I think the important thing for me is really in terms of rolling out newborn screening to all 50 states and really beef that up, not only in terms of screening, but also follow-up protocol for the newborns who are identified. I love the idea as well of beefing up a national rare disease diagnostic network. I think there are elements of that already in place, but we need to strengthen that. For our community of adrenoleukodystrophy, we really need to have a website, a private, secure website where patients can not only do self-tracking and dynamically look up and discover other patients and kind of form like-minded communities, but as well as having this website allow for the accumulation of good demographic and clinical data that can be mined for insights and potential therapies. And my dream, of course, is for the big guns of biotechnology to get involved. We have a few very small biotech companies that are, very agile and very eager to work on this condition. But I think we need the big companies that have the resources, the operational machinery to really run these big studies, natural history studies, and engage with the patients to understand what endpoints matter to the patient, because it is a multifaceted disease and symptoms vary widely, progression varies widely, and at the end of the day, it's really what matters to the patient, their health and their quality of life. And then probably finally, I will say I'm always eager to keep a holistic perspective, because I think neurodegeneration is one big family. Many of these diseases share common traits. They have kind of the same pathological cascade, and the more we learn from each other, both in terms of pediatric and adult conditions, I think the more insights and the more therapeutic leads we will derive.
Very good. Let's pass the scepter of power over to Wendy and hear what she has to say.
Well, Ben, I love your idea. I would love to see a website that allowed patients to upload all of their data. But I would also like that to be not a commercial model. It would be fantastic if we could find a not-for-profit and a way for individuals to upload and storage like their DNA, their genetic data, so that we could mine that. Patients would have control over it in terms of privacy. I think patients are learning more and more, and especially just right now after what's happening on Facebook, of really thinking about how valuable your data is and what things you're consenting to. I do think in rare diseases, patients are willing, if they're going to get help, to maybe put their data out there more readily. But I also think that we need that opportunity. We need that not-for-profit opportunity for them to have an ability to share or not share now and in the future, in the way that they want to. And on the other side, if we can come together, then we can drive cures faster by being able to mine that data. I also think if I could change something, I would like to have better, think about how we could shorten that, the therapy timeline and have better post data, have requirements for better post data approval, and particularly for failed medications, maybe requirements around sharing data for failed medications so we can learn faster and better from everyone's work.
Excellent. Thanks, Wendy. MK, you're in charge. What would you change?
So like many others have previously stated, sort of a warehousing effect. And I think you can do that by establishing centers of excellence in each of these in rare diseases. And it doesn't need to be one university has 5 different rare diseases. That could be, you could share the wealth type of thing and have more of a hub and spoke type approach where you have all the thinking, the latest thinking, and all the trials at one particular area that all these patients get referred to. And then you can worry about, patient travel assistance to making sure that those trials and the data is out there, but also the library of patient samples to enable researchers in industry to be able to actually do research on some of these materials that have clinical data associated with it. I would also like to see less data. I'd like to see more conditional approvals in the rare disease space. And what I mean by that is, making some of the current requirements something that you do after it gets to market or after patients have access. And I'd also like the agency to consider trending data as opposed to statistically significant data. So for example, there's mitochondrial DNA, mitochondrial diseases, but there's like 3,000 different, different subtypes there. So all these patients are allowed to go in one study. And if you only get 1 or 2 responses and everything else is negative, does that mean that that's a failed drug? No, I think that there's something with those 1 or 2 patients, and can other parents then have access and try that? And so I would love to be able to get that to enable access on a semi-approval sort of pathway for rare diseases, as long as the data are transparent. And so that patients, their families, and physicians can make an informed decision as to whether or not they want to try something.
I think, Dan, there's something else that we need to think about, and that is when I look at the Facebook groups, for instance, in Duchenne muscular dystrophy, there's about 40 different Facebook groups. When I look at the numbers within those Facebook groups, there are an average of sometimes 1,000 to 1,700 people that are actively engaged on that group. And keep in mind, that's not just US, it's around the world. So if we think of the numbers in Duchenne alone at 12 to 15,000 patients with Duchenne muscular dystrophy in the United States, and there's 1,000 to 2,000 online and contributing and advocating and connecting with each other, we have to make it our business to try to reach out to the people who aren't connecting for reasons of culture, religious philosophy, language, education, whatever the reason, and really try our best to develop models to get those patients who are not connected. Because if we're truly going to serve rare disease, we need to try our very best to get whatever therapies, whatever standard of care, whatever opportunities to everyone, not just the connected few.
Very good. You guys are like when the genie grants you a wish and you ask for multiple additional wishes.
Yeah,
a lot of problems.
Our lives, right?
Well, so
with that approach.
Fortunately, in our next segment, I'm going to force you to get more practical. The next segment is called the $1 Billion Checkbook. And I'm going to ask all of you experts about investing in the rare disease space. So I invite you to think big, but be specific about how you would dole out your capital.